Hi, Gay DeRusso with Majestic Rider. So today I'm here with Cayenne. This is the younger Icelandic single-footer cross. And I'm just going to show you an update of what he knows. He gets a little distracted. So he can do his lateral flexion pretty well. This is very helpful in case something breaks on your bridle and you need to grab it or something's going on. And just to make sure they'll turn their head and keep their feet still. And this also helps me to get their head set once I teach them to give to pressure. So I have a video on this, but all I'm doing is I teach them the lateral flexion, then I hold pressure, and I teach them the vertical flexion over and over. This guy's doing really good. He didn't know how to bend and some of the basic things that he needed for me to communicate with him, and he was better to the right than to the left. He kind of leaned in. Now he's quite good with all of that. He bends nicely. He's still growing, so again right now he's just a little downhill going, so hopefully that will level out, because that happens to a lot of younger horses. And willing, now that he knows what to do, he pretty much just follows my eyes, and then I'm just using a little rein, a little squeeze and relax, and a little leg to keep him from cutting in or drifting out, which he just drifted. So now we'll go the other way. So it's normal for young horses to drift and to trip, like a little stumble here and there and things of that nature, because they're still learning their feet. And down here at my end of the arena, because I ride so much, the footing's not that good. And so right by the fence and these poles are usually when horses will trip, because the footing goes up and down, and gaited horses are great at dragging their feet when they're bored and catching their feet on things. So they would be great arena evaluators. Because if they don't trip, the footing's good, and if they're tripping, the footing's bad and you just don't know it. So he's doing the figure 8 well. Now we're going to go into our serpentine. So all these things warm them up. It makes them more supple. And by doing these lateral movements of circles and serpentines and leg yields and shoulder in and haunches in, it helps you to be able to move your horse's body parts to get them straighter, or to make them a little bit crooked, to actually help you separate their legs if they're getting pacey. And it gives you control. If you can bring their head up and down, you can change their frame, which is also going to help you change the gait. If you're looking for a specific gait, the frame usually has to change some, but it depends on each individual horse. It's not every horse, because I tell people when you rack, you usually have to have them in a little bit higher headset and a little inverted. But if you do that with a pacey one, well, you're not going to get a rack. You're most likely going to get a pace, because you took them too lateral. So it depends on each horse what frame you're going to put them in. All right. So now we're going to go over the poles. I'm doing a lot of poles with him. He's quiet, which is great for a 3-year-old, but we want to make sure he pays attention enough to get over the poles and gets his proprioception really good, because some gaited horses don't have very good proprioception, and they have to learn how to use their feet better. But he's doing really well, because now when he's in here and I just set him free, he just canters over the poles, canters through these canter poles right here, and can do some flying lead changes. But again, he's still growing, so you saw him kind of trip there because he just wasn't paying attention. So if you have a young horse, that's normal. If you have a horse that's just been a show horse or on flat, they can be a little trippy too. If your arena's not as nice as the arena they were in, they're not used to that bad footing, so it takes time. So what I'm doing with him is starting to put all the things together to make it go a little faster. So he's already trying to leg yield. That's why he was moving way over. So he couldn't do this at all in the beginning, and now he has it memorized. So every time I start going down the quarter line, he's like leg yield, and he starts going sideways. Don't punish him if your horse does that, because it means they're trying really hard. And after you're sure they know it and everything is good, then you can start telling them, no, don't do that yet, because I'm not ready. But don't do it when they're learning, because you'll just confuse them. So watch, leg yield, all I did was use my hands. I didn't even use my legs, and he went over. So we're going to get a little faster walk out of him. If you have a horse that's built more downhill like he is at the moment, you got to keep their head up. Keep their head up at least level with your pommel, the front of your saddle, because if they get it lower than that, they're already heavy on their front end, and it will make them heavier because they're built low and then they're putting their head down, and so they're getting even more weight on that. Okay, now we're going to add some of our circles back in, and we need a little more speed for his flat walk. So I like to try to work their flat walk and do all these movements at the flat walk, and then with horses that didn't have a flat walk like him, after I do all the movements, and you'll see I'm tapping him because he can get a little dull. After I do all the movements, then I'm going to practice flat walking for 5 minutes as well. So he's probably going to get more like 10 minutes of flat walking each direction. Every time you start off or you're warming up in the beginning, they can do things like get Trotty and Pacey because they forget what they did the day before. Some horses are good at retaining things, and some horses, the first 5 minutes, you just got to remind them of everything you did the other day because they forgot. Okay? In time they'll get it, but lots of them forget. So this is more of a speed of a flat walk that I like. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And some of you people who have horses that Saddlegate, some of them can Saddlegate the speed of your flat walk. And so when you're thinking you're flat walking, if they don't have any head shake and there's not much movement at all in the saddle, they're super smooth like the Pasos and the Peruvians, most likely they're doing the correct speed for the flat walk, but they're just doing a slow saddle gait instead. And again, with the Peruvians and Pasos, I can never remember the names because I have them come in, but not a lot of them, so I don't always remember the names. I think it's Paso Fino for the slower gait, Paso Corto, Paso Lana. So different names, but I don't want to mess them up and piss people off. All right, so we did our circles. We did some leg yielding. Now we're going to go to our shoulder in. Shoulder in is very helpful with the Pacey horses and step pacers. And it will help you on the trail to be able to control their shoulders, especially around your turns. You'll see I'm tapping him every once in a while because I got to stay on his case in here because he gets bored. And if I don't, he'll just slow down and he won't keep the same speed. So another little shoulder in. Turn your shoulders with them. Go boy. So much better than before. Of course, it takes years to perfect these things. I am just putting the basics on him so we have a way to communicate. And so he can understand what I want so I can help his gaits. If you don't have all these basic things on your horse, it's very hard to communicate with them. And it's very hard if they're pacing or trotting to be able to tell them what to do to get them out of the pace or trot because you don't have any cues for them so they don't understand what you're doing up there. Again, many of these guys don't have much training on them when they're sold. And so when you try to do those things, even though you know how to do them, the horse doesn't know how to do it, and they really don't understand. So we're going to do another shoulder in, and then we're going to do our back up. So you can always forward ahead if you're getting bored. But again, your horse should be able to do it just as good as this horse can for you to be moving on to your gaits. So now he just stops from me to stop riding. His back up is much better once he wakes up. And I usually back them up 6 times a ride. So when you're doing these things and you got it down in the arena, you can do all these things out on the trail. So see, he just stumbled a little bit there, but that's the bad footing, but I'm trying to keep him awake. Okay, so let's do another back up. Oh. So there, he just wasn't ready and he kind of dribbled. He's a very willing horse. And he will go forward and do all those things. He just spaces out a little bit at times. And that's normal because he's a young boy. He's probably thinking of eating grass right now. He's like, when do we get done with this so I can get my grass? All right. So now we're going to do the turn on the forehand. So right rein, right leg. Always look where you want to go. Use more leg than rein. So he can do this quite well because I used to have to really tap him and get after him with my leg. No break yet. See, he wants to look over at the chickens. So I got to wake him back up. Come on. Now we'll walk the poles this direction. So quiet horses like this are fantastic, but you still got to work some of the energy out before you get on them, because if you don't, these are the kind that fake it well and then can have lots of talent and leap through the air. So that's the hard part. You might be like, well, I don't want to work it all off because he gets too dull. Well, that's up to you, but I'd rather have too dull than leaping in the air. So today he didn't have much in him. He just trotted a little bit when I turned him out, so I knew that was enough. Because when I first take him back to work after he has his weekend off or his 2 days off, he flies through the air. He's full of talent. And so I know as the week goes on, if I'm riding him every day, that he's going to get quieter and I won't have to do as much to prep him. But the first days back, after a horse has had days off, are the most important to get that energy out if you're not going to do it much. Always do it if they have a day off. So this is his flat walk. So you'll see at times his flat walk's really nice, and sometimes he goes into a Saddlegate or something else. That's okay. Again, we're still warming up right now. So everything is slowly getting better. Okay? Sometimes people are annoyed because they can't gait yet or the horse isn't speedy. What you're trying to see is he improving? So all these things that I've been teaching him, is he getting them? Well, yes, he is. He leg yields on his own now. He's got a much better backup. He's not pulling his head as much. He really used to pull it down to the ground and kind of yank on me, and you'll see me just kind of pop his head up once in a while, and then I just put my hands back down. So, again, he's got to get used to carrying his head there because it's natural for him to carry it much lower, but that's not safe for us. That puts too much weight on his front end, and too much weight on the front end is very dangerous. That's why you don't want these gaited horses to get their heads way down below their knees, especially if they're a tripper, because with all that weight, even if they're not a tripper and they take one bad step and miss it, they can fall on their face because they're already halfway there. But with the trippers, that's just asking them to trip because they're not going to be paying attention, and they got more of their weight on the front end, so it's very easy for them just to fall down. So keep their heads at least just the level of the top of my saddle. And then you could keep it a little higher if they really were a tripper. Not sky high, but just a little higher, and try to keep the weight on their back end. So even right now, he's better, but he's still a little heavy on the front end. Right there was good, and now he went back to getting heavy on the front end. Okay, those are our leg yields. But I like this speed better. For his flat walk, you'll see his ears are starting to wiggle some. Now we're going to try our shoulder in down this side. Remember, when you do your movements, shorten up your reins so you have enough connection to them to be able to do it. Look across your diagonal, slightly turn them like you're going to go across the diagonal, then push with your inside leg to keep them going straight. Just a couple of steps and then go straight or leg yield back to the rail. But this is the key. That shoulder in is the key to many horses getting out of the pace. But if they don't do it well, it doesn't matter. It's not going to work. So they have to do it well, and they have to be able to do it at the walk and your slower gait before they can do it well at the faster gait. Otherwise, you're just making it harder on yourself. So everything you do with the horse, you always should be able to do it slow first, then faster. But again, many of these horses aren't trained to go slow, and they do it all fast, and then you really have no control, and the horse is just a ball of anxiety because all it knows is just run. So if you're having problems, I always say it, but I know a lot of people don't do it. Go back, put a good foundation on that horse, and then you'll be able to gait and do much other problems that you were having will start to go away usually. Okay, so he's dribbling a little bit. We're pretty much done with our shoulder in. We're now going to do a little back up. Whoa. So he just kind of dribbles a little bit as we were backing up, and I went to say, whoa, he just kind of went off to the right, and that's normal for a young horse. Good boy. But at least now he's backing up. Hello. See how he went out to lunch? And you see I'm tapping him pretty hard because he's duller, and if I just give little tiny taps, he's not going to pay attention at all. He'll just ignore it. So if you have a dull horse, sometimes you got to whack them pretty hard. Like, hey, wake up. Because they're thick-skinned, and they just don't feel things like the sensitive horses, so you've got to get a little bit more pressure on them or they won't be there for you. So this is getting much better. I can feel in time when he's just going to back up. But you'll see the straightness. Hello, there we go again. See, going from backing up to forward is difficult for him. He just doesn't go anywhere yet. All right, so we got one more back up and one more turn on the forehand. So, whoa. So if you know they're always going right or left when you go to back up, hold your right rein and right leg when you start or when you're going to stop them so you're ready. Okay, now we're going to do another turn on the forehand. Remember, the left rein is turning him, the right rein's preventing him from going forward. Okay, now he does get a break because he's young. So we're going to give him a couple minute break, and then we're going to go to our flat walk. So he's pretty dull. I know that. I want to show you some stuff. But we also don't want him so tired he's falling on his face. What I've been getting is about 10 minutes of flat walk each direction, and then I've got him up to 5 minutes of his Saddlegate doing it slow each direction. And it's hard on him. If your horse is getting too tired, too sluggish, you might have to give him some days off in between the training just to get his energy back. And never forget, young horses are growing. So if they're really complaining, sometimes their back or their stifle or they're having growing pains and they need some days off or they need a couple weeks off just to grow. So always pay attention to their behavior and see what they're doing besides him just falling asleep. So when we go off again, I'm going to try to take him in a flat walk and just keep him down at that end of the arena. I like to flat walk in a circle when I'm working on their gait and they're getting a little pacey because that circle will bend them. I mean, you have to bend them around the circle. And then what that will do will help separate their legs more. Okay. So you got to get them up to speed, and then the hardest part is keeping that same speed. But then again, if you have a pacey horse, to keep a little bend in it as you're doing it. And again, when they're not forward horses or they're not sensitive horses, you really have to kind of stay after them in the arena because they get bored. Now always look up when you go over poles. Just tilting your head down will make many of them trip because it adds more weight on their front end, and we don't want them heavy on their front end. Okay, so that's better because he kind of got a little pacey back there. This is better flat walk. But I'm trying to keep him bent as we're going around and keep him going the same speed. So you'll see I'm quick with that stick because he ignores my leg a fair amount of time. And even though he can go super fast and you can get him to go fast, it's hard for him to go those in-between speeds. This isn't that good right now, so we're getting there though. It's hard for him to go those in-between speeds because he wasn't taught it, and he's probably bored. He's like, we're not going fast. Why do I got to pay attention? So this is better. We want it smooth. His head position's better. In time we'll kind of bring his nose in a little bit, but it's hard to do it all in the beginning. So I try to get their footfall, get the speed, then start working on their head in the right position so it looks a little prettier. Now he tripped and I felt the bump in the arena, but I'm still going to back up. And he's pulling. There we go. So he's got to stay awake. He picks his knees up quite nice as he goes faster, but when he does this flat walk, even though it looks like he's picking them up, he's not always picking them up. So those kind of horses, you want to stay on their case. You want to keep their toes short. It's nice to keep their roll in the front of their shoe or a rocker of their shoe so it gives them more clearance when they're being lazy, and that might also help you with the tripping. And be very careful when you have quieter horses like this that their toes aren't too long, because that can definitely make them trip. If they trip in a part of the arena and you know there was a high spot there or a low spot, try to avoid it. Your horse won't know where that is, but you will know where that is. So once he's going out on trail, and he's a good trail horse, these things will be much easier to get him to go. But I'm doing it all in the arena because I know they can trail ride him just fine, so I can work on it and be consistent, and I can't videotape. Tripped twice, didn't you there? Again, this is right in front of the gate, so what did I say? This is the bad footing. But I still want him to pay attention. I know it's hard. But I don't want him just to trip and think it's okay to trip. Who cares? Because if the person up here is unbalanced, that could cause him to fall off. So we want to make sure he got a little Pacey there, so I did a little shoulder in, that he's paying attention, he's walking forward and moving. So I'm going to hit these two poles because he kept tripping over here, and the poles will get him to pick up his feet, but I'm still going to kind of sit back. But you'll see me kind of being on his case the whole time because he's just not paying attention. So that means he needs tomorrow off. That means he needs to recover some. Okay, that's quite good. Cool. So he's drifting, even though I said whoa. You see how he's drifting? Because he's just not there all the time. So he's drifting to the right, so I'm going to switch my stick. I was going to stop, but I'm not going to stop now. I'm going to do it again. Whoa. So if they keep drifting a certain direction, it's good to put your stick in that hand. And I'm waiting until he straightens out and he's not wiggling around. And now we can have a break. So wait, don't drop the reins while they're still moving, because that's a good way to make them trip. People drop the reins, they lean over and pet the horse. And I'm like, don't do that, not with the gaited horse. Stop them, make sure they're standing, and then you can pet them and do everything. So that was about 4 or 5 minutes. So we're going to give him a little break, then we're going to go the other direction. You can see he's breathing hard just from flat walking, okay? And I'm not even going that fast, but just that flat walking is wearing him out. And that's the thing about young horses. Some can be energetic, some are not. And so you can only do what they have. And if you push them past that point, well, that's not good either, because they're not going to want to do it anymore. Okay? So you do what you can. And that's like while I was teaching him in the beginning, I did the turn on the forehand probably 1,000 times because he didn't get it. Now he does it quite well. But at that point, when he wasn't getting it, I don't want to add in turn on the haunches because that would just confuse him. He couldn't even do the turn on the forehand, so he's going to connect the two together because they're both turns. So get the turn on the forehand first because that's the more important one. And then once you can do that well, then get your turn on the haunches. And if you get that turn on the haunches, it's very helpful because if your horse spins or does something like that and you know how to do a turn on the haunches, you just try to do a turn on the haunches the other direction and it blocks them from spinning. So if he went to go left, I would take both of my reins to the right and push with my left leg, and that could get me back in front of the object instead of them running away. Okay, so we're going to do another turn on the forehand. So I do a lot of these with him. So see, he's doing it. He's just not overzealous about it, but he tries. And again, he's young. As he gets older, if they stay on his case, he might be a forward horse. So there he objected a little bit, and did you see me? The first thing I did was sit back in case he was going to kick out, because many lazy horses do that. They'll kick out, or they'll do like a crow hop or a little buck, and they try to intimidate you. See his ears flopping? So you know he's going to have a nice flat walk. And some days he does, but some days he doesn't because he's being lazy, like today. See how he just kind of stepped on the pole? He's like, I'll get over it, but I ain't going to put much effort into it. This is a better flat walk. Good boy. Good job, buddy. But keep going. So see, now he dulled out. Now that was too fast, but I had to wake him up. So I hit him a couple times. He went up into his Saddlegate, and I let him do it. I didn't pull on him because that would have been confusing. I was like, you just need to go. You need to just wake up and go forward. So tell him one thing at a time, and then once you get him going again, then you can start working on your gait again. But if you can't even get your horse going forward, don't worry about the gait. That's the last of your problems. You got to get that go button better and then start working on the gait. So this is a much better walk, isn't it? He woke up a little bit. And it's not like I do anything super hard with him. I don't ride him real long, but I do ask him to engage himself, and that's a lot for him at this stage. So see, every time I get to these poles, I feel like he's just a little heavy. I'm trying to give him his head to get over it, but you'll see each time I get to a pole, I'm sitting back. Because he just feels just a little bit like maybe he'll get over it and maybe he won't. So, you saw me just pick up on his head. Don't let their head get low. So when I Saddlegate him, he's one I want to bring his head up a little and tuck it in. He is actually now, instead of getting Trotty under saddle, which he used to do, he's getting a little Pacey. So at times I might have to bring it down, but I don't want to bring it too low because of his behaviors. See, he just wants to bring it down. Like, how about I go down there? I'm like, no, no, no. So you got to be consistent. Every time he brings his head down, I have to raise my hands up like that, and I kind of push that bit up in his mouth to make it uncomfortable so he doesn't want to lean his head down and get real low on us. So this is pretty good. Good job, buddy. There, he's almost going more towards a trot, but that's fine. Lean back. Any horse that's trippy, even if it's Pacey, and I say in my videos, like, tilt your pelvis forward on the Pacey ones because it frees up their back. Don't do that. Everything, it's different if you contact me, I'll tell you. Whoa. So he drifted a little to the right. So remember, left used to be his bad directions. He used to drift left. Now he's drifting right. Normal for a younger horse. So now we're going to give him another break. With the Pacey ones that are trippy, you just need to sit back. You want to help their gait, but you don't want to fall off. And if you're like this, and you're trying to get that weight, but they're getting their head down and more on their front end, and they get trippy, you'll just go over the side because of physics. So it's better with that. You keep working on their pace and working them over poles and stuff, but just sit back, and you might even need to be more back like this just to keep yourself safe. Okay. Before he falls asleep, I'm going to do our turn on the haunches. So that's when their hindquarters stay still and you push their front end around. So you open your right rein, your left rein goes against. So pretty good. Good boy. So he's wobbly here and there. He's not perfect, and he's not going to be even by the time he goes home, because good horses take years to make. They don't take months to make. So I can get things started. If the horse is fully trained, I can finish it. I can tune up their gaits and get you so you know what to practice with the horse. But you can't expect a horse to go in training for a month and come back with all the buttons it needs and in condition and doing everything perfectly. And if we did get it for some reason, then the owner has to do it anyhow. So even if I can ride it really well and get it all out of it, well, then the owner still has to practice and do those things. And if they stick it off in the pasture for the next 3 months and don't ride it and pull it back out, they might be like, Gay didn't train it at all. No, I did. You didn't keep it up, so it went away. That's just how things go. It's just like you not going to the gym for 3 months, or you not going to work for 3 months, or you not doing something for 3 months. You kind of forget how to do it. It'll come back faster if somebody reminds them. But it doesn't mean the trainer didn't do the work. It means you didn't keep it up. And so if you're going to send your horse to training, don't do it in the winter, or don't do it when you're going to be on vacation when the horse comes back. You got to make sure when that horse comes back to your house or boarding stable that you are ready to put the work in and go. So if you're not, then just wait to put the training on them. Wait till spring or wherever that you can work them as soon as they come back, because otherwise it's just a waste of money. All right, so now we're going to try to Saddlegate him in this direction. He's like, I think you forgot what you were talking about. And I was like, I did. And he's like, lucky me, I'll trick her. Okay, so what we're going to do when we go to Saddlegate him is try to keep him on his feet. And I'm going to ask him to go a little bit faster. So here we go. So I'm going to use just both legs. I'm going to sit back a little bit. All right. So I got his football, but you'll see there's just a little bounce to it, and that means he's step pacing. So I'm going to use my shoulder in here and there to help him separate his legs and try to smooth it out. The other thing I'm going to do is try to set his head a little bit like that. So I'm doing two things. I'm going to keep doing shoulder in, and I'm going to keep applying pressure to when his head's like that to bring it down a little bit. Now, when you have a horse that can pace, like he paced, and he can also trot, you got to be careful how far you bring their head down, because if you bring it down too much, they'll start fox trotting. So usually if you get it level with the saddle, you're good. But if his head is above the saddle, which would be good if he was trotty, but he's not being trotty right now. So I got to be able to put his head saddle level, or the top of my pommel. And you'll see sometimes I'm wiggling a lot. He's doing the same gait. He's just using more of his hocks, so I'm getting more wiggle. That's okay. When you're teaching, you just get the football. You'll get the smoothness after we get this consistent. But this is it. This is the gait, even though I'm wiggling around. So I'm going to keep just pushing his shoulders over, asking for his head down, releasing just a little when he does it, because he can't carry himself right now, so I don't want to just let go of him, especially since you saw him trip a bunch, didn't you? So I got to keep catching him because he keeps drifting right. So there is a ton of things to do when you're up here. And the more you can do it well, the better and quicker they'll get. Well, that's pretty good. They'll get better at the Saddlegate. So it's not about speed. I'm giving him a break because he was doing a good job, and I know he's tired. And then we'll do it again. It's not just about speed. It's about get the footfall correct. Get the horse to be able to hold that footfall at that speed. And then over time, once they get conditioned, you can go faster. then it'll happen again. They'll be able to go so fast and they'll start falling out of gait. So you stay that speed and you condition them in that speed for a couple of months. Then they should have a little bit more strength, and you might, he's like, do not tell them that. Then they might have more strength and you might get a little bit more speed out of them, okay? Each horse has their different amount of speed. He's saying, I'm bored, and you're talking, so I'm like, good, let's go back to work. So both legs, I kind of bring his head up to get the gait, and then once I get him in it, then I'm going to turn his shoulders a little bit. There we go. But get the speed, get the footfall, so you're going to stay at a slow speed, get the footfall, and get the frame you want them in, and control. Strengthen them, get those stifles strong, and then over time they'll be able to go faster and faster. And then you can go slower, fast, and it all just stays smooth, instead of you having to go through some bumpiness and then going fast and they're quite smooth. You want it all smooth. You'll also notice I don't pull my hands down to get their heads down. It's very hard to do that when you're going fast. And horses weigh 1,000 pounds, and we're usually 100 or something. So teach your horse just to give to pressure, and you don't have to bring your hands down like that anymore. So you'll see he does pick his knees up, and that takes more energy. Oh, good boy. Not perfect, not the smoothest. Let's do our turn on the haunches. But he was trying, and for today that was good for him, because I can tell now he definitely needs a day off. The other things I'm going to tell you about young horses depends on how they're doing, but when they're struggling a little bit, they're having a hard time holding the gait, they're getting tired, they're getting worn out, they're getting trippy. That means it's a fair amount for what they're doing. They're putting in a lot of effort, they're getting very tired, and they're doing the best they can. So when that is happening, you don't want to work on too many things. So I worked on all the arena stuff, but I used to just do that at a regular walk, and now I'm starting to do it at a flat walk. Once I got all his arena work done, then I did my flat walk. Now I'm doing my Saddlegate. Now you might say, well, are you going to canter him? Well, he canters quite nice when he's free, so I know it's not going to be that hard to get. But no, I'm not going to canter him at all. I lunge him and I canter him, and I run him around and he canters, and it's getting better on its own without me even riding it. But I don't want to make this too hard. It's already hard enough for him. So to do the Saddlegate, and then once he's exhausted, for me to try to canter, he might trip, fall down, lose his balance. Anything could happen. So no, I wouldn't work on his canter until I got that Saddlegate pretty good and his flat walk pretty good. He can hold it, he can stay in a good frame, and he's not worn out after I do it. Then I'd be like, now he's ready to start working on the canter. So I would think with him, it might be another couple of months. You could always go longer than that, but at least a couple of months before I worked on the canter. Now, it doesn't mean you can't canter him out on the trail or something here and there, because that's different. Out there, you're walking and doing different things. So yes, you could canter up some hills here and there, because you're probably not going to be working on a Saddlegate for 10 minutes out there either. Now I'm sitting back because it goes uphill a little bit here. Okay, now I'm going to start trying the shoulder in this way to make it a little bit smoother. So again, on trail you could canter here and there, but in the arena I'm not going to work on it till he's pretty darn fit. Now his headset's getting better, but as his headset's getting better, he's getting slower. So I just switched my stick over. I'm like, hey, don't forget, I got a stick. Now see how there's a lot more motion in the saddle, so still same gait, just more hawk action. So his croup's going up and down, and that's causing me to wiggle around the saddle. So I'm going to hold and slow him down. So I'm going to hold, but my legs are on him. And now this is just a little bit smoother. So then I released. So there his headset's pretty good. So we're going to give him a break. Good job. Because before his head just went up, down, and like that. Good boy. So we're going to do a little bit more. We're not done yet. So just a couple more minutes of that Saddlegate, and then we're going to side pass him and quit. So again, in this short period of time, he has learned a lot, and he's a smart horse. He doesn't get overwhelmed and anxious. His brain just gets tired, and then he just doesn't want to do it, and then he might get a little trippy. But again, all that's just part of horses growing, and that's what you have to realize with young horses, is that sometimes they're going to object just like your kids do. Like, I don't want to put the laundry away. You're like, okay, then you won't use the car. So he's not going to want to do stuff for me either. But once he realizes I'm the one who feed them, he's like, well, maybe I will do it for her. She might give me some extra food. So when it's getting too herky-jerky, like I said on Bender, I kind of give him a hug. I hold my reins, I squeeze with my legs, and I collect him just a little bit. That was too much, Ben. Now I almost called you Bender, Cayenne. So he had it. It was very smooth. And then he's like, oh, we get to stop. I'm like, no. So here, see me jiggling a lot? So I'm not going to stop and back him up. It's the correct gait. It's just more hawk action than I want. So I'm holding it. Now, here I lean way back because that was the trippy part, and he was screwing around right there. Now we're better. So see, he wasn't throwing his head the whole time. And what's happening now? He's starting to throw his head. So he just told me, Gaye, I'm at my limit. So I'm like, okay. So we'll let you go a little bit over here, even though it's herky-jerky. We're going to hold you right here. I'm going to sit way back just because of the footing. I got to get it smooth one more time. It's pretty smooth here. And sit way back when you stop. See him start to fall forward as soon as I stop? That's how they'll trip. They just shove their feet into the ground. They hit a bump or something. Now turn on the forehand. See how he measured? He memorized. He's like, if I do turn on the forehand, we go the other way. We'll be done in a minute. So, again, I just corrected him and said, no, stay here. No. Now he's trying to do something else. He's like, let's just get this over with. Now, he moved a fair amount, so if he moves one more time, I'm just going back to work. We're done saddlegating, but we're going to do our side pass. So you can have a break or you don't have to have one. Horses figure out in time, if they keep moving and you keep working them, that they're not getting a break. The lazy ones will figure that out quick and be like, I'm not moving anymore. The hop forward horses, they don't care because that makes them happy. So they're like, yeah, let's just get it all over with. You got to be careful with them rubbing on your foot. I know he's itchy, but you don't want that shank to get caught in your stirrup. All right. So here we go. Let's see if we're lined up for the camera. Okay. So I'm going to go off my left leg first. Always try to look up. Everybody starts to stare down at the horse. Now, he gets a little confused sometimes in the beginning, and some of the gaited horses will go move their front end and then their back end. But he knows how to sidle up, and that, again, causes some confusion. That's why I always say, if you can, teach the side pass before the sidle up. And just when I did it, he just pulled his head down, and then you might have seen me kind of jerk on one rein and then the other. I'm just like, if you jerk down, I'll jerk up. So you don't want to do that anymore. So you see, some horses can side pass really fast. Not him. He's slower. But he can move out and he can go forward pretty fast. That's why I think it's more all a growing thing. But remember, he didn't learn this side pass that long ago. Just a couple weeks, maybe. Every time they go backwards, you push your hands forward. Good boy. And we do it one more time. So that's it. Hopefully that helps you with your younger horses on knowing what to do. I'm going to write an article and list like all the things I would teach them first before I'm really starting to work on their gait, so you know you have the basics down. And then it makes it much, much easier because you can communicate with them, and then you don't have to keep running in the arena like I'm doing now. So he's got, I think, a couple more weeks here, so I am most likely going to spend most of it in the arena around the barn where I can work on his gait more. But if he was staying another month, then I would be doing the rest on the trail, because then we would have enough to make sure it was pretty good. Okay. All right. I hope that helps. Remember to subscribe and like, because all those likes and subscriptions do help me. And I like to share information and give you more videos to help you with your gaited horse.